Hello there, and many thanks for staying with us right here on NTV Uganda. My name is Romeo Busiku, and I'm here to discuss a very pertinent issue. We are going to be discussing women breaking barriers within the coffee industry. Yes, I'm talking about the International Women's Coffee Alliance. Yes. Now, the International Women's Coffee Alliance Uganda chapter is part of a global network of self-organized, number one, self-governing, number two, women in coffee lobby and advocacy organizations. I have two ladies in studio with me and a gentleman, yes, who is fronting women's issues. What advises or inspires him to do so? You'll soon find out. Now, I'm joined by Teopista Nakungu. She's the chief coordinator at the International Women's Coffee Alliance Uganda chapter. She's not alone. She's also joined by Richard Sanoga. Richard Sanoga is the founder and managing director of Vanuatu Associates and is also a board member of the International Women's Coffee Alliance. And lastly, we do have Mrs. Martha Wandera. Yes, Mrs. Martha Wandera is the managing director of Kimko Coffee and a member of the International Women's Coffee Alliance. And they both, all of them, join me right now in studio. Very good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Let's start with you, Teopista. Help us understand what the International Women's Coffee Alliance is on the global stage and also the local organization, the International Women's Coffee Alliance Uganda chapter.
Thank you, Romeo. IWCA, or International Women's Coffee Alliance, is a global network of self-driven, self-governed women that are advocating for the improvement of livelihoods of women in their communities. It's a chapter that connects self-governed, locally organized women in 26 countries, both in producing and consuming countries. What started as an informal organization in 2003 has grown to 26 chapters in 26 producing and consuming countries. Each chapter sets and delivers its own goals. The IWCA Uganda chapter was born in 2010 following empirical evidence that the women in developing countries disproportionately face inequalities in the coffee value chain. In line with the IWCA at global level goal, our goal is to build the capacity of women of women, both men and women, in the different chapters, to lobby and advocate, to share experiences and contacts within the IWCA chapters, to address the issues that we all face. Our core business is women empowerment. We strive to create resilience, to address the shared challenges. Of course, we envision a society where Ugandan women are sustainably thriving in the coffee value chain, following our mission of women gainfully participating. Besides addressing our shared challenges of uncertainties in the coffee business, we also face challenges of climate change, which puts considerable impact on the women, on the lives of women, which is already outside imaginable, considerable margins. Besides those, we have our specific challenges that include limited participation, abuse, illiteracy, non-prioritization of our issues in programs, limited access to information and utilization. You may think accessing information is easy, but it's a very big challenge for women. Market access are very big issues. In addition to our caregiving activities and balancing with work in coffee. Where we work through lobby and advocacy, trainings, and we have the potential to work throughout all the coffee growing districts in Uganda. But of recent, we have focused our work in 5 districts, namely Kapchora, Sironko, Ibanda, Mityana, and Luero. We are a membership-based organization. Our membership is includes individuals. You can join and work with us as an individual.
Indeed.
And from here, Romeo, you're welcome. We have members who come as groups. You can be a group of 25 to 30. You make a group and work with us. But we also have corporate members, women who have, companies that have women empowerment, gender equity as one of their core values.
Yes.
And we have 4 of those, and they are reaching over 10,000 smallholder farmers. So our membership, again, indirect members also include 10,000 farmers.
Tiapista Nakungu is the Chief Coordinator of the International Women's Coffee Alliance. And if you are a viewer and you're watching right now and you didn't know anything about the IWCA, I'm sure you know a thing or two right now. Membership is free and open to everyone right there. Of course, let me also bring in Mr. Richard Senoga. You're the founder and managing director of Vanuatu Associates, and you're also a member of the International Women's Coffee Alliance. Now, what inspires Mr. Richard Senoga to advance and empower and advance women's issues? Would like to know.
Thank you. The issue of gender equality and women empowerment is actually top on the agenda of many countries in the world. This is because gender equality is actually common everywhere. Inequality is almost prevalent in all parts of the world.
Indeed.
So for this reason, it becomes essential for us to address. Now, there's perhaps no development strategy that has been proven to be essential to society as one that fronts women at the center of it all. So in all that we do, involving women and having them take center stage is paramount. Now, we need women because when they're involved, things are better. Families are healthier when they're involved. Families are well-nourished. Children go to school. Generally,
because of their compassion and caring ability.
Yes, family incomes increase, they grow, savings grow, they can save, they can invest, and reinvest. So at the end of the day, once we have them engaged, it's all for the better for the families. And again, what we see at the families as a result of engagement of the women, again, applies to communities, to nations, and the world at large. So we think that their involvement is important, and we can't afford to leave them behind.
Of course, their involvement is important, Mr. Senoga, but what inspires you to empower and advance women's issues?
Okay, looking at it broadly, if we must achieve sustainable development...
You as an individual?
Yes.
What inspires you?
Personally, I think that the equal partners, the equal actors,
yes,
we must see them as equal actors in this game.
Right.
We can't simply assume that we can go along with, as men alone, leaving them behind. I mean, look at it this way. It's like thinking about development, leaving them behind. It's unthinkable. It's like trying to clap your hands, trying to clap with only one hand. It just can't happen that way. So we think that they're equal actors. We need them on board. We just can't afford to leave them behind.
Don't mind me. I get the same question whenever I tell people that I'm a feminist. They're like, how so?
Absolutely.
You're a man, Mr. Romeo Busiko. How come you're fronting women's issues? But then it's really important that the men also get involved in gender equity and equality. Yes. Let me also bring in Mrs. Martha Wandera. We would like to know what your experience is in coffee as a woman and what challenges are there in the trade.
Okay. Thank you very much, Romeo. Now, I would like to share my experience in coffee as the executive director and founder of Kimko.
Indeed.
And at Kimko, we do operate along the entire value chain. But for purposes of sharing my experience here, allow me to share from just 3 levels that we operate from. Right. First is the farm level. You may know, Romeo, that 43% of women globally contribute to the labor force. Indeed. 43%. Now, in Uganda, you find that it is 70% or even more labor force, you know, in agriculture contributed by women and in the coffee sector.
And sometimes it's not even paid for.
It's not paid for. Now, the important thing is for us to know what that 70% is doing. Right. It's basically involved in planting, in weeding, in pruning, in harvesting, maybe a little bit in post-harvesting.
Yes.
Okay? Now, unfortunately, after all this labor force that has been contributed, when it gets to the selling of coffee, when it gets to making decisions about, sharing the proceeds from the coffee sales, the women are completely excluded. The women are not present, okay? The men are seen in the market by themselves. The women are nowhere.
What causes this?
Of course, you need to know that we live in a patriarchal society, so it's a long story that comes, from the context where we live.
But in 2020, one might believe that maybe we've passed such barriers and we are making gains.
That would be the assumption. That would be the assumption. But when you come to where we operate in Lwengo with the rural groups of women that we work with, these are the issues, okay?
Right.
And then secondly, the land rights are still a big barrier. Women don't own land. And so if you don't own land, then how are you supposed to share from the proceeds of this land that you don't own? So women are completely excluded. And unfortunately, in some cases, it's also reported that when men sell their coffee, they don't show up back at home. They are gone for maybe 2-3 months. They don't come back to their families.
They only show up when they're broke.
Yes, when they're broke, then they come back and they get the women to work on the land, and the story continues.
Wow.
Very unfortunate there. Then when you come to the other level where we operate, that is the processing level, I want to really applaud our women, because I think women are taking a lead actually on the processing, particularly of the specialty and fine robustas. Women are basically are known for quality production. When we commit to do something, we really do it well.
Indeed.
So women are positioning themselves for the specialty and fine robustas markets, and I think we are doing well. In as far as primary processing, where we also operate as Kimko, there is a huge disparity. I will give an example of, where we operate in Lwengo. We have a little mini industrial coffee processing park of about 24 factories, and I'm proud to say Kimko is one of them, under the name of Chiwamirembe Coffee Factory. But out of the 24, you'll find that only 2 are women-owned. 2 are women-owned. Again, what are the barriers there? This is very high, capital investment, activity. Women don't have that kind of, access to finances to put up such millings, and yet they have the ability to actually run milling factories. In trading, a little bit we see women coming up in trading, but again, there are not so many. Again, because it's very expensive. In other ways, also, the men tend to put the women down. Oh, this is a male-dominated sector. What are you doing? You can't run a factory. It is supposed to run by a man. Women don't have the confidence to actually come up and take up those kind of roles. The other level at which I really wanted to share with you, my experience is the level of roasting, packing, and branding coffee. I would like to say that, again, the women are not yet there, but they're coming up. We have really strong women brands, and I will say that women are seen to brand high-quality coffees.
Indeed.
The likes of Zigoti Coffee, that's a big brand. The likes of Gorilla Conservation, those are big brands. Tasty Kawa, those are huge brands. Kimko, of course, I should have started with Kimko Coffee, which
Indeed.
we have, those are big brands, are really high-quality brands. So I really think that women should be supported.
Well, of course, when you talk about challenges, I do believe climate change makes center stage. How has climate change affected women in this business?
Climate change. I would say climate change, I mean, just like any other crops. I mean, we know that women are at the forefront of, making sure that the plants are irrigated and so on and so forth. So if there is no, enough water to irrigate it, again, it's the women that we see fetching the water.
And it goes back to the issue of money.
It goes back to the issue of and also in terms of deforestation, it is the women who are really affected, and yet they have all these other roles, that they have to do, including farming.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me also bring in Theopis Nakungu. She's the Chief Coordinator of the International Women's Coffee Alliance. Help us understand what are the available opportunities for the women in the coffee value chain.
The women throughout the coffee industry
Yes.
In the world today are farming, they are processing, they're selling, they're trading in coffee, they're sorting, they are processing, they're improving, they are in all levels of the value chain. However, I want to focus on a study which IWCA did.
Please go ahead.
Because one of the ways we do our work is providing data-driven solutions. So we did a profile of on production capacities of the women, and the results were quite interesting. 95% of the people interviewed in our networks were concentrated at the farming level. 8% were a nursery operation, 4% were processors, and only 2% were in exports. We also realized or found out that majority of the women were concentrated in low-paying jobs in cafes and sorting in processing factories. That is, if they try to move up at the higher level of the value chain. We also discovered that there is very low value addition capacities. 95% of the women, 85% of the women sold red cherries and chiboko, and only 15% could add value to process, to sell FHU. There is a very high level of domestic violence resulting from or unequal power relations at the household. And so you see from that analysis, there is a very big potential for the women to actually participate in those levels. But there are underlying challenges that prevent them. And therefore, basing on that, on what we did at that time, we have come up with a call for action to kind of address and build capacity to make sure that the women embrace these opportunities. We are calling for a review of policies to make them more aware and more sensitive to women empowerment, to women inclusion, to gender equity, so that the women are not left out, so that when it comes to training, when it comes to different things, they are given the opportunity. We are seeking collaboration and partnerships to address the issues of capacities of women to participate in these levels. We are lobbying and advocating for creation and of affordable and access to affordable finance and other resources for women to invest, like she has said. The level of, as long as you get out of the farm, the investment is very, very high. We are calling for massive sensitization, especially at communities and different levels of the population, for people to appreciate and recognize the participation of women. It's very, very critical.
Indeed.
If they're not recognized, they will not, no one is ever going to include them in programs. Like I said, one of the biggest issues is non-prioritization of our issues in programs.
Because there are few women at the upper echelon of the decision-making organs.
Yeah, they are not even there in decision-making roles. So when people are making programs, say capacity building, something that is very funny, when we are doing some work in the district, we asked some people that these women are saying you don't invite them for trainings. And actually, it was dawning on them for the first time that actually, they were actually not inviting the women for training. Yet, from the discussions so far, you can see they contribute a lot. We are calling for women, we are actually encouraging them to create or form group or join women member producer organizations.
Yes.
However, we are calling for a review of the policies. Again, the policies for joining most of these organizations are not conducive for the women. The requirements that may be...
what are some of those requirements that make it tougher for women to join?
Coffee ownership, for example. You must maybe, most of the coffee organizations, you must at least own an acre of coffee. And in most cases, I may be in a home doing all the work, but the coffee doesn't belong to me. Again, this is coupled with the sensitization we are talking about to promote joint household planning and reach to resources that are available at household. We are calling for some of the policies to be reviewed, but also we are calling for setting up of incubation areas for leadership of women and men, for them to understand the gender relations in the coffee. Because I think in Uganda we don't have any such incubation center where the women can be trained in leadership to build their confidence issues, to address some of these things. These confidence issues are always making them miss out on opportunities. I'll give you an example. Sometimes we have opportunities from our global network to say send samples or log in or apply for training opportunities which are coming in. But the women think those belong to others. So someone needs to build the confidence levels of the women. And so I believe when all that and more is done, it will create a stronger Uganda for all. I'll give you an example.
Right.
In 2011, FAO did a study that clearly indicated that when women are involved in the trainings, their yields go up by 30 to 40%. And you know what that means? It means an increment of 1.5 to 4% in terms of improved economy. But also it translates into almost up to 17% of hungry people accessing food. So building capacities of these women to make sure that they participate in these opportunities. There are quite a number of opportunities. Another very, very big one is the signals from the World Coffee Trade indicate require responsible sourcing. And responsible sourcing, one of the responsible sourcing ways is to produce gender equity coffee. And this is where now the different countries, like Uganda, like the other chapters, the other mostly producing countries need to use or to work with the women to make sure that they address this. And also, if well-resourced, IWCA chapter has the potential to seek out markets directly from roasters, from other traders within our global network, both consuming and producing countries.
Tiapista Nakungu, she's the Chief Coordinator of the International Women's Coffee Alliance. Let me also bring in the Founder and Managing Director of Vanuatu Associates, Mr. Richard Senoga. Mr. Richard, let's talk about international experiences. How are the women engaged in coffee elsewhere in the world?
Thank you. Beyond Uganda, women are taking center stage in coffee, agribusiness, across the value chains.
Indeed.
I would like to cite some examples of countries and of studies that have been done of recent, which actually show that indeed women elsewhere are leading the way. A recent study in 2019 done in Southeast Asia, looking at 4 key coffee growing countries, that is Indonesia, the Philippines, Vietnam and Singapore, show that indeed women are taking center stage. The findings of this study highlight some of the key truths that we would want to be at least aware of. Key among these was one, women are more meticulous in most of these tasks that determine bean quality. When it comes to sorting of the coffee beans, sorting of, grading, women are more careful, they're more attentive to detail than men. And at the end of the day, this, in a way or the other, helps us come up with quality beans that fetch more prices.
So women care so much about the quality and not so much about the quantity.
About the speed of doing it, about how much I do, determining how much I get. No, it's all about quality, taking your time to simply get the best out of it.
I see.
So this is why the women actually do a good job compared to the men. Secondly, women are better testers. Biologically, we have also established that women have got a stronger sensory capacity than men. When it comes to cupping is a practice that involves testing of brewed coffee to establish the aroma the taste, and analyze this, women actually outperform the men at this practice. So we see that actually women involved means a lot to the quality of the coffee that is brewed or the quality of coffee that is being exported. And again, women have been seen to be better negotiators. When it comes to negotiating the prices, the value of coffee with buyers and farmers, women in many countries take center stage. And we think that leaving them behind denies us a chance to really get the best out of the whole exercise. So we think that women must not be left behind. Secondly, again, we have seen women taking center stage in leading businesses, leading coffee businesses that were hitherto seen to be owned by men or led by men. We've seen them penetrate into areas that were earlier on for men. For example, coffee roasting, that was traditionally man's activity. Coffee packaging, exporting was earlier on a man's activity. Right now we see women participating into this, they're engaged, and we think that in Uganda we must borrow these same examples so that we keep them just away from the family activities of planting, of weeding, of harvesting, and engage them into activities that require decision making, value addition at the higher level. So this is key as far as the industry is concerned. We must progress with them on board.
All right, Mr. Senoga. Now, for purposes of attracting the woman who is watching right now, the viewer, for purposes of attracting that person, help us understand how participation in the coffee value chain helps to remove the risk of gender-based violence from the family level.
Thank you. When women are empowered, meaning that when they are allowed the chance to access opportunities, to access resources, to access, to receive a fair hearing like the men, we see this helping them to build their profiles. We see this helping them to build their confidence. And at the end of the day, we see this again translating into higher incomes, which in all the other helps us to mitigate likely issues of violence in homes
caused by poverty.
A result of poverty, a result of lack of incomes on one side of the coin. So we think that by engaging them at all levels, not only in the field work alone, but at the high levels as well, we see this helping us in a way to build a much more equitable society where women and men all have an equal say as far as income is concerned, as far as decision making is concerned.
All right, let me also bring in Mrs. Martha Wandera. She is the MD of Kimko Coffee and also a member of the International Women's Coffee Alliance. Now, Martha, let's talk about a very pertinent issue. What inspires you? What keeps you going? And what advice do you have for women? Yes, what advice do you have for women out there so that they do not lose it? I know, COVID-19 and the whole lockdown has caused a lot of disruptions on the global stage. And in Uganda here, many people are losing it. So what advice do you have for these people so that they do not lose it? And first and foremost, what inspires you?
Okay, very interestingly, actually many of the challenges inspire me quite a lot. The fact that women are underrepresented in the sector, for me, is a great inspiration. It's actually an opportunity for us to come up as women and take part. And try to understand these challenges, try to overcome these challenges, okay? But also try to be the voice of the voiceless, because there are so many fellow women, who are participating in the coffee sector at the lowest levels, who are, facing all these barriers that don't come up to the decision-making table. So for me, that alone inspires me, to take part and be part of the decision-making so I can speak on behalf of, my fellow women. I would also say I am very inspired by the support system around us, around us as Kimko. First of all, my family definitely is a great source of support, and IWCA gives us a lot of support through different networks.
Yes.
We have been able to attain actually lots of trainings, that have been connected to us through IWCA. So the fact that you know you're not alone in this struggle, you know if you have a challenge, you can go to IWCA and then they'll connect you to IWCA Global or ITC, keeps me going because I know I'm not alone. So that really is a great inspiration. And I want to call upon women not to give up because of challenges. We should
Especially
not be
those women
deterred.
who do not have the same connections as Mrs. Martha Wandera.
That's why it's important for people like I to take up these positions and
Yes.
be the voice of those women, because
Amazing.
really it would be very unrealistic to say that those women can come up right away. I think some of us have to take up that role and be the voice of the voiceless, you know? Yeah, but most importantly, we need to keep going because nobody's going to do this for us. And really challenges should not be a deterrent for us to keep going. Yeah.
What should be at the back of the mind of that young woman out there who would want to join the coffee value chain?
I think those women should actually consider very seriously to enter the coffee sector. There are lots of opportunities.
Like?
For instance, like I said, there are lots of opportunities in the specialty market, in the fine Robusta market. It's been there, but it's quite new for women. And the fact that as women, we have a notch on producing quality coffee. I think we should really take up those opportunities. That young person should actually look up to that and join the sector. But most importantly, join as business owners, such that, you know, we're at the table to participate and take those important decisions that affect women.
All right, that is Mrs. Martha Wandera. She is the Managing Director of Kimko Coffee, and she's also a board member of the International Women's Coffee Alliance. Let me bring in Teopista Nakungu, the Chief Coordinator of the International Women's Coffee Alliance. Teopista, let's talk about the achievements. I know it has been a rough road, but then there are some achievements you can verifiably boast of as the International Women's Coffee Alliance. What are some of those?
Thank you very much, Romeo. We are part of a global network.
Indeed.
We are part of 26 chapters representing both producing and consuming countries.
Right.
And therefore, we have connections in 26 countries. That's, for me, that's a very big achievement. And we have the potential to seek out markets in these countries. Talking directly to buyers and roasters. From now, our global network recently, there is a promotion of direct trade. So they regularly send us lists where we can present post-women's coffee, and there's that opportunity to sell directly to the farmers. And people are sending samples, and we yet to collect feedback from them. So for me, I think that is one of the achievements. In 2018, we co-organized the International Coffee Day celebrations in Uganda. These are held at every beginning of the coffee year.
All right.
And that year, the global coffee community was celebrating women in coffee. During the same celebrations, IWCA Uganda chapter was represented in the international conference in London, and they made a presentation on what we are doing in Uganda in one of the sessions. So that's big. We have continued to build capacities of the women through our strategic partnership. We have mobilized resources to build, to train women in lobby and advocacy. Thanks to our strategic partners, we have been able to implement several projects, and we have also made some studies which are informing our programs. We have documented, we have prioritized, identified and documented women issues in Uganda. We have contributed to the elevation of Uganda. You know, Uganda is the birthplace of Robusta coffee. In June 2020, just recently, we were part of the E-Forum, which was organized by IWCA Philippines, co-hosted by, and hosted by IWCA Global. Our chairperson discussed, this was E-Forum, which was discussing the potential of fine Robusta coffee. You know, as women, because of our other issues to scale, we are positioning ourselves in the niche markets, the ones which really appreciate quality, which appreciate responsible sourcing. And so she made a very, very big and beautiful presentation showcasing the work of Uganda. And everybody actually understood. And amazingly, after that, before even the end of the day, we were getting people calling us, asking for Robusta coffee samples. We have continued to have calls from our consuming chapters asking us whether we have stocks in those countries. So for me, I see that's one of the big achievements. And many more. We are here.
Indeed.
You.
And we are having this conversation.
And
right.
we are having this conversation. So for
Another
me,
achievement.
that's increased visibility, but also increased confidence. You know, confidence issues are big with women. So.
And what kind of feedback are you getting from some of the beneficiaries you've been able to work with? Are they very, very happy with what you've done for them?
Martha is one of them. She was actually part of the e-conference, and I believe she has submitted samples of her fine Robustas. So we are getting very good feedback because, again, during our participation in different conferences, we not only talk about our work, but we appreciate and showcase the work of the different women, the contributions. We have very many youth and very many women working in the domestic coffee consumption, having brands on the market, and we have other women mentoring others. So we really get a lot of appreciation. We don't have many resources, but through our connections, we really do the best we can.
Indeed, that is so amazing. Courtesy of the International Women's Coffee Alliance, Diopisa Nakungu is the chief coordinator of the same. Let me also bring in Mr. Richard Sanoga. He is a founder and managing director of Vanuatu Associates, and he's also a board member of IWCA. Mr. Richard, let's talk about the importance of women's involvement. Why must men work hand in hand with the women in coffee?
Achieving, I would say that empowering women economically is key and critical to achieving inclusive development. We just can't think about moving around as men. Now, the surest way of sabotaging your own development is by trying to hamper the growth of your counterparts, deny them access to education, to opportunities, keep them home, sabotage their ideas. You can be sure if you do this to your wife, if you are a male head of a household,
And it is happening.
to your daughter, for example, and assume that maybe your son is much more important than your daughter, you can be sure you won't go any further. So we think that we must be as inclusive as possible. We must allow them access to opportunities, let them train, educate themselves, let them access opportunities equally, just like we the men, or just like we would like to see our sons do. We must leave them free, let them be. That way we can achieve inclusive development. Secondly, we must at all times attempt to invest in their abilities, financially, emotionally. Let's be there for them, whatever possible.
But let me ask a very pertinent question. Sanoga, why are men so afraid of empowering women?
We have got a key stereotype that when we get them empowered, when they have more money than we do, they will be difficult to rule. That has been a key thinking out there. We think that this must be changed. When they're empowered, actually we get more benefits than the other way around. So we think that we must break these stereotypes. This kind of thinking must be broken down completely, because when they get better, we all get better at the end of the day. The children get better, families get better, we get more incomes, things are better that way. So we think that we must have a way of changing this thinking so that at the end of the day, all of us benefit equally.
All right. Yes. Let me also bring in Mrs. Martha Wandera, and let's talk about the COVID-19 pandemic and how it has affected or disrupted business in coffee, especially the women. How has it disrupted business within coffee?
Again, let me start from the farm level, because at Kimko we do work with a group of women who pick. We've actually trained them, and during COVID we could actually not access those women. We could not employ them anymore. First and foremost for reasons of social distancing, but also everybody was locked up in their homes. So we really were cut down on our pickers, our pickers. Now, when it comes to the factory, because of the limited and affected cash flows, we could not afford to, have everybody on board, all the workers on board. So we had to, have some workers leave. And that in a way, of course, affected the production and eventually the cash flows.
Even the livelihoods of those who left.
Exactly. The other biggest one is machinery. We were supposed to acquire a machinery, a pulper for that matter. And because of COVID, we could not get the money, we could not get the machine here. So that did not deter us. Like I said, challenges should not deter us because we are still processing, but not using a pulper. And again, that fed into our productivity and eventually the cash flows. So women have been affected in different ways in terms of human resource, in terms of cash flows, productivity, and have not been able to, make as much money, as much profits as had earlier planned.
Would you agree with experts who contend that COVID-19 is to blame for the low enrollment and participation of women in the coffee value chain? Especially this year.
My answer would actually be yes and no, because in a way, from our perspective, we were affected, but in another way, we actually innovated and, we're able to now boost our brand. So I would say yes and no, depending on how somebody, appreciated it. Because it was actually during and after COVID, that the Kimko brand really came up, where we are now putting it on the market out there. We're actually employing people to market it. So I would say yes and no, depending on how you look at it.
So help us narrate some of the lessons learned during this very trying period.
Lessons learned, keep going. Have your guts on. Keep going. Don't allow to be deterred by anything. And be innovative, be creative. For instance, we couldn't get our pulper, but then we innovated on how to still produce a high-quality coffee, and we still packed it. So be creative, be in the moment, look for various ways of keep going, but also think about other ways, like we didn't really use technology at Kimko, but because of COVID, we are using technology now. We were able to open up our Facebook page. We are selling our coffee online. So be creative, stay put, keep going.
Embrace the challenges.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Martha Wandera. She is the managing director of Kimko Coffee, and she's also a board member of the International Women's Coffee Alliance. Let me also bring into your pista Nakungu. We are now talking about recommendations. What should be done to ensure that more women enroll and participate in the coffee value chain?
Thank you very much. I would first of all would like to appreciate Uganda and the policies on gender equity. Uganda subscribes to most of the international, regional and national policies on gender equity. However, there is need to step up implementation and popularization of the same. We would like to see more inclusion, especially in the upcoming regulations and inter-Africa free trade that was launched by the African Union. But while there is a lot of light being shown on the gender equity by most influential institutions, it's actually the inspiration of the courageous and determined women in the coffee chain that is truly driving the change. And we are hopeful for a positive change in terms of recognition of women work, contribution, and more participation. If we address the recognition, it means we shall be included in programs, and the participation, it means, again, there's going to be capacity building. We are calling for massive sensitization. We are calling for partnerships, not necessarily to partner with IWCA, but people should include in their programs and partner with those institutions that are competent and are driving gender equity in all programs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Mr. Sanoga, how do we ensure that more coffee women break the barriers to the next frontier?
Thank you. We think that, one, we must learn to believe in women, believe in their capacities and their abilities, and support them. We must support them wherever possible to get there, to get higher. Secondly, we think that women too have the role to learn to speak for themselves. Get up and speak for yourselves, challenge the status quo, and make sure that at least you're heard. Your voice must be heard. That way, we think we can go far together.
And what position should government play in ensuring that more women enroll and participate in the coffee value chain?
The EOC, the Equal Opportunities Commission of the government of Uganda, is a great step in the right direction. And we think that government can step up this further, ensure that the ground is leveled. That way, we think that there will be better space for women to come up, speak for themselves, and again, get heard at the different levels.
And what role should development partners play in this case? The
funding that we receive from the partners across the sectors, particularly in agribusiness, is equally important. And we, as actors in the sector, have the role to make use of this funding to build the capacity of women, to get them exposed, to get them network, and to get them know that it's possible at the end of the day. So capacity building is going to be key in helping them understand that their worth is important and that they can do it if others are doing it.
Self-esteem is key.
Absolutely.
All right, Martha, we are talking about recommendations moving forward on how best we can alleviate the suffering of women and those who would want to join the coffee value chain.
I think that first of all, now that we are done with the coffee bill, I think that the team that is going to be responsible for the laws and the regulations should keenly think about the interests and rights of women and make sure that, you know, the laws and regulations address themselves to those pertinent issues. Because if we don't have the supportive laws, then, I mean, we can't really talk about attracting more women to join. Secondly, I think that the government should, you know, think about maybe something like a women fund.
All right.
You know, I know that we've been discussing the stimulus package with monies in UDB, but those monies cannot be accessed by the kind of women that are in coffee, the kind of women who are, you know, trying it out on small enterprises in the coffee sector. So we should think about more realistic, more gender sensitive, you know, funds that can be accessed by women.
Yes.
You know, yeah, that can cater to their needs.
And what can government do in terms of offering measures to alleviate the effects of climate change? Issues to do with irrigation, offering such schemes. What can government do?
I have an interesting idea. I tend to think about government putting up something like common user facilities.
Right.
You know, common user facilities where we have different facilities that can be accessed by women. Women come in and maybe roast their coffee, access a pulper, access an irrigation equipment, you know, maybe at a small fee.
Storage facilities.
Storage facilities, you know, because if you're going to think about a woman to find money to buy that, it's going to be impossible. So how about if we thought of, you know, a common user facility where we have all these different, you know, things provided for the you know, ordinary women to access at a small fee.
At a small fee.
Yes.
And we do have some last remaining 5 minutes to your piece there. I'm going to give you maybe two each so that you can give us your parting shot to your piece there. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. One, I would like to appeal to men and women to join us, work with us to address these issues because it's for the good of all. I would like to thank our partners, UCDA, which is Uganda Coffee Development Authority, for supporting women in coffee and also giving us a home. We are located in Coffee House. Our strategic partners, Rainforest Alliance, the African Women Development Fund, ITC, USAID, to mention but a few, for especially building the capacity of the women to participate in the coffee sector. I would like to thank you, Romeo, for hosting us.
And thank you for coming.
I would like to to thank NTV for allowing us to come here and advocate for women, and Agent Action Fund for giving us a voice. I would like to end with a quote from one of the famous activists, the ladies I admire, Lady Dr. Maya Angelou. She said, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better.
Amazing.
So I'm happy for everyone. If they think they know the best, they're doing the best they can, let them do better. Thank you.
And thank you for those wise words to your piece there. And as NMG, we shall continue to advance women's issues as long as we are still here in Uganda. Richard Senoga, final parting shots.
Thank you. Mine is all about inclusion, inclusive development. We know that what a man can do, a woman can do.
Amazing.
Or even better. So we think that fellow men out there must come on board and support your women to engage in coffee at the different levels, not only in farming, but also in trading, in roasting, in exporting, because the benefits are vast, and all of us win when we work together.
Does it have to be us calling upon the men or putting in place measures where we can sensitize communities to change their mindsets?
Absolutely.
Mr. Richard Senoga.
Absolutely.
I believe it's not only about calling upon the men, but putting in place measures where we can sensitize the masses, especially the men, to change their mindsets. What do you think about that? Is that feasible?
That is feasible. And again, it all comes to getting the ground leveled. All of us are equal before the law, before God. So we think that nobody must be left behind. No one must be seen as less important than the other. So the appeal is for us, the men, to consider our counterparts as equal partners, equal players in everything we do, because they have the capacity to and the abilities too. So women too must again come up to again take this center stage, because they have the capacities. We have seen where they outperform us, the men. So it's possible with everyone.
All right. And Martha Wandera, your final parting shots from Kimko Coffee.
Sure. Thank you very much. I think we've been discussing barriers, right?
Indeed.
But I want to emphasize that barriers should not be the reason for us not to take action. Where there are barriers in the coffee sector, as women, we should be able to confront them, address them, and move on. And then secondly, I want to say that attracting women in the coffee sector should be seen as priority for everybody in the country as we strive to attain the 20 million bags in 2030. And I really think that bringing on board women will only help a great deal in not only increasing the productivity, but also increasing or working on the quality, providing the quality that is necessary.
Mrs. Wandera Martha, she is the managing director of Kimko Coffee, and she's also a member of the International Women's Coffee Alliance. We also did have Mr. Richard Senoga. He is the founder and managing director of Vanuatu Associates, and he's also a member of the International Women's Coffee Alliance. And last but not least, we did have Teopisa Nakungu. She is the chief coordinator at the International Women's Coffee Alliance. Many thanks for all of you for having made the time to speak to NTV Uganda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having
Very
us.
insightful conversation that I've had with you, I must
Thank
say.
you.
Thank you very much.
And to you at home, many thanks for having made it a point to watch this program all the way from 11 a.m. up to now. My name is Romy Busiku. Please go out there and make it happen. It's upon you, the men, to ensure that we involve the women in all the decision-making organs in this country, because they know better what problems plague them. My name is Romy Busiku. Have yourselves a blessed day.